Bhagavatam ki jai. Today we read from a Transcendental Diary, Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976, by Hari Sari Prabhu. Sri Vrindavandam. Rameshvara Swami sent a copy of an article entitled The Hare Krishna People, which was published in the October edition of Coronet, a magazine with a circulation of 500,000. It was a result of the long interview Srila Prabhupada gave their reporter in early June in Los Angeles. It was in general quite favorable and especially complimentary to Srila Prabhupada personally and also to his books. The reporter was a young man who had obviously been touched by Prabhupada's sincerity and knowledge, and that was reflected in his article. Rameshvara mentioned that Mukunda Prabhu has returned to Los Angeles from London and is now working diligently on public relations with good success. He referred to the New York court case about which the reporters in Chandigarh had questioned Srila Prabhupada, but the only detail he gave was that a group of scholars are going to hold a press conference in New York to inform the public that our movement is authorized and should be respected. This whole affair is generating positive publicity, and Rameshvara wrote, "We are all very hopeful that we will be able to impress the general public substantially that we are different from other bogus religious cults, which simply steal from the public without giving them anything. That the Krishna consciousness movement has profound contributions to offer human society." Rameshvara also informed Prabhupada that a movie they had made about book distribution will not be released. It shows explicit techniques used in distribution which he fears our enemies may distort and use against us to sway the court judges and press to limit our access to airports, etc. for Sankirtan. It is just too controversial at this time. He is also launching a court case for libel against a demon, Ted Patrick, a self-appointed liberator of people who have joined religious organizations. Patrick, who is currently serving a one-year jail term for kidnapping, is just about to publish a book that slanders us as an immoral and dangerous cult that kidnaps and brainwashes young people. Rameshvara stated his confidence that we would be successful in suing Patrick and his publishers. Apart from monetary damages, he thinks we will get excellent publicity and show that we are not going to stand for slanderous attacks on our movement. On a more positive note, he reported the printing of 500,000 abridged, hardbound Gitas, all of which he expects to be distributed within 4 to 5 months. He also plans a further printing of 1 million, which should be sold before the end of 1977. "This will be a glorious achievement for your divine grace," he wrote, "to have published almost 2 million copies of hardbound Bhagavad Gita and sold them all within 2 years. We are simply praying for Lord Chaitanya's mercy that we may go on serving you by unlimitedly increasing book distribution." All right. So, interestingly, Ted Patrick, I don't know if you're probably all familiar with him. He was in the U.S. During this NRMs, New Religious Movements, there was a time, I think in the late 70s, where there were a lot of new religious movements, and ours was one of them. So-called new, because it's in the West. This is a perspective. It is a Western perspective. New religious movement, and people were joining. Many of them were just like they said in here, bogus, cults. People that were charismatic and had some talent for word jugglery were presenting themselves, trying to, presenting their philosophy and gathering, people. So I think this is a case of cheaters and cheated, right? People that want to be cheated and people that are cheaters. And there crazy things were happening, but there were people that are actually kidnapping others. Like Hare Krishna devotees got kidnapped. I know a devotee, she got kidnapped I think twice, 2 or 3 times. Her parents paid for it. And then they would try to brainwash them, anyway, but he actually got a Bhakti Godhead, his Ted Patrick. He actually was in the airport. He gave €1, $1 to a person, as a devotee, and he got a Back to Godhead magazine. So I'm not sure what his destination is, but anyway. Yeah. Any questions about this? What we were reading? That book distribution. 1 million books. That's huge. They were doing a lot of books then. I don't know why it was the abridged Bhagavad Gita. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But anyway. You have a question? Okay. 5th canto in German. Somebody wants to read while I read the English version? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Let's see something really quickly. Yeah. Okay. Today we read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, The Creative Impetus, chapter 2, 5 to 4. Chapter 2 is titled The activities of Maharaj Agnidra. Verse 4. Sacha tad asramo pavanam ati ramaniyam vividha nibida vitapa nikara sangslishta purata latarudha stala vihangama mitunahai Prochamana Srutibihi Pratibhojamana Salila Kukuta Karanandava Kalahangsa Dibhir Vichitram Upakujitamala Jalasaya Kamalakaram Brahma Saha Shi Purvachiti Cha also Tat of Maharaj Agnidra. Asrama of the place of meditation. Upavanam the park. Ati very. Ramaniyam beautiful. Vividha varieties of. Nibida dense. Vitapi trees. Vitapa of branches and twigs. Nikara masses. Sangslishta attached. Purata golden. Lata with creepers. Arudha going high. Stala vihangama of land birds. Mitunahai,
Mitunai,
with pairs.
with pairs.
Prochamana,
Prochamana,
vibrating.
vibrating.
Srutibihi,
Shrutihi,
pleasing sounds.
pleasing sounds.
Pratibhojamana,
Pratibhojamana,
responding.
responding.
Salila Kukuta,
Salila, Kutuka,
waterfowl.
waterfall.
Karandava,
Karandava,
ducks.
ducks.
Kalahamsa,
Kalahamsa,
with various kinds of swans.
various kinds of swans.
Adibihi,
Adivi,
and so on.
and so on.
Vichitram,
Vichitram,
variegated.
variegated.
Upakujita,
Upakujita,
resounding with the vibration.
resounding with vibration.
Amala,
Amala,
clear.
clear.
Jala Asaya,
Chala Asaya,
in the lake.
the lake.
Kamala Akaram,
Kamala Akaram,
the source of lotus flowers.
the source of lotus flowers.
Upabhabrahma
Brahma
began to walk in.
began to walk in.
Translation. The Apsara, sent by Lord Brahma, began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the king was meditating and worshipping. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds, such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating very sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage, the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. Isn't that nice? Okay. Text 5, there is no purport. Text 5, translation. As Purvachiti passed by on the road in a very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with her every step. Although Prince Agnihadra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga, with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes. And when he heard the sweet tinkling of her bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more and could see that she was just nearby. Okay. All right. Purport. It is said that yogis always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts. Jana vastita tadgatena manasa pasyanti yang yoginaha. Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 13th chapter, verse 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice sampreksha nasikagram, keeping their eyes half open. If the eyes are closed completely, there will be a tendency to sleep. So-called yogis sometimes practice a fashionable form of yoga by closing their eyes and meditating, but we have actually seen such so-called yogis sleeping and snoring while meditating. This is not the practice of yoga. To actually practice yoga, one should keep his eyes half open and gaze at the tip of his nose. Although Agnidra, the son of Priyavrata, was practicing mystic yoga and trying to control his senses, the tinkling sound of Purvachiti's ankle bells disturbed his practice. Yoga Indriya Samyamaha. Actual yoga practice means controlling the senses. One must practice mystic yoga to control the senses. But the sense control of a devotee who fully engages in the service of the Lord with his purified senses, Hrishikesha Sevanam, can never be disturbed. Srila Prabodhananda Sarasvati therefore stated, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpa Patali Protkata Dangstra Yate. Chaitanya Chandramrita 5. The practice of yoga is undoubtedly good because it controls the senses, which are like venomous serpents. When one engages in devotional service, however, completely employing all the activities of the senses in the service of the Lord, the venomous quality of the senses is completely nullified. It is explained that a serpent is to be feared because of its poisonous fangs. But if those fangs are broken, the serpent, although it seems fearsome, is not at all dangerous. Devotees therefore may see hundreds and thousands of beautiful women with fascinating bodily movements and gestures, but not be allured, whereas such women would make ordinary yogis fall. Even the advanced yogi Visvamitra broke his mystic practice to unite with Menaka and beget a child known as Sakuntala. The practice of mystic yoga, therefore, is not sufficiently strong to control the senses. Another example is Prince Agnidra, whose attention was drawn to the movements of Purvachiti, the Apsara, simply because he heard the tinkling of her ankle bells. In the same way that Visvamitra Muni was attracted by the tinkling bangles of Menaka, Prince Agnidra, upon hearing the tinkling bangles of Purvachiti, immediately opened his eyes to see her beautiful movements as she walked. The prince was also very handsome. As described herein, his eyes were just like the buds of lotus flowers. As he opened his lotus-like eyes, he could immediately see that the Apsara was present by his side. Om Anjana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, I will read the verse again for the gentleman. As Purvachiti passed by on the road, in a very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with every step. Although Prince Agnidra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes. And when he heard the sweet tinkling of her bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more and could see that she was just nearby. Drum roll. Okay, this is very nice. So Prabhupada makes some really nice purport, and we will talk about the purport. So, the first paragraph, Prabhupada is talking about this kind of mystic yoga, right? That yogis are practicing where they keep their eyes half open and half closed. And then they stare at the nose. Now, some people, they pretend. This is what Prabhupada is mentioning in the first verse here, that there are pretenders who try to practice this mystic yoga. And they have a style where they close their eyes completely. And I guess that looks maybe more fashionable. Prabhupada says something like that here. Fashionable form of yoga. So it looks a little more cool. Oh, his eyes are closed. Or her eyes are closed. They're really thinking deeply, right? But Prabhupada, mentions that actually, they have a tendency to fall asleep. That's the tendency, to fall asleep, because it's so comfortable. You just fall asleep. So they're pretending. These are pretenders. Anybody can pretend. So don't be fooled by pretenders. That's why we have this philosophy. We know what is a pretender by the way they speak. They say one thing, they do something different. They pretend to practice yoga. They want to link with God, but they're trying to get some mystic powers. They want to be independent from Krishna. Krishna is, what is it? Yogeshwara? He's the master of all mystic yogis. He's the man, Lord Indra, right? Was so fried about this little boy who wanted to not worship him, who convinced everybody in, was it Vrindavan or Nandagram? In Vrindavan, because Govardhan, right? He convinced everybody in Vrindavan not to worship Lord Indra. And Lord Indra was fried with this little boy. And Lord Indra was like, he's got all kinds of mystic powers. He's a serious, he's actually a devotee. He's serious, but yeah, he's a devotee, right? All the demigods are devotees. And he was so fried with this little boy, but Krishna is the master of all mystics. He held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days with his little finger, no problem. So, as Prabhupada goes on in the next paragraph of the purport, he starts talking about the mystic yogi, right, is trying to control the senses, right? So we may also try to control our senses directly, trying to control them, but they are so difficult to control, and they're compared to venomous snakes, right? Because a venomous snake causes a poison in the body, and it can kill you. So the senses also, they can mislead the individual, right? They can actually destroy your spiritual life because you forget about your spiritual sadhana and the goal of your sadhana. Sadhya, it's called sadhya, but it's not, the point is that you forget about the goal of your sadhana because you want to eat the ice cream, the cake, at 6 o'clock in the evening, I know how it is. I've been there. And then you wake up at 4 instead of 2 because of the cake. But we don't practice this artificial. It's an artificial method of controlling the senses. And what we practice is something different. We practice actually engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. So let's talk about that a little bit. There's the example of Maharaj Ambarish. He engaged all of his senses. Now, what does that mean? To purposely engage your senses. Now, you can meditate on that actually because it has a deep meaning. When you purposely engage all of your senses, like when we're chanting Hare Krishna, the tongue is moving around, right? Making all these different formations and blowing out this air, right? And when you meditate on that, and you do it intentionally, right? You pay attention to that. You're engaging in purifying your tongue, and your mind. That's an opportunity. It's like when you do something for somebody. We've said this so many times, we talk about it all the time, but it's important because important things are relevant for rehearsal, for repeating, so that the meaning is understood nicely, right? It's important to understand this, so we repeat it. That we have to really kind of focus on our activity. That's how we control the senses. That's how we control the senses. Not by artificial abnegation, not by artificial suppression of desires, but by actually engaging our senses. By, Hare Krishna, Hare, paying attention to the tongue, the way it moves in the mouth. Your mind is suddenly brought there. It's not out there. Oh, who walked in the room? Or who's doing this, or who's doing that, or what's going on here, or what's happening there. We have to be engaged with the mind. The mind has to be engaged. Otherwise, the eyes will see something else, and the mind will run there, thinking that there could be happiness. Because we're not finding it in the chanting, because we are not engaged. So the engagement has to be there. That purposeful, that intentional activity. That means we have to be there, intentionally engaging the mind, the tongue, the hearing, the ear. We have to hear every syllable. There are so many syllables. It makes a sound vibration. And that is the process of purifying the consciousness. That's how we do it. It's so simple. And that's why it's very elusive. Because we are thinking, I am the controller. I will purify my own consciousness. I won't say that. I will purify my own consciousness, right? I will purify my own intelligence and my own mind because I built a house and look what I can do. I studied. I have a degree now. Look, I'm very powerful. Whatever it may be. We develop these kind of like ideas about ourselves. And it just kind of, we are actually nurturing that growth on the shoulder, that ahankar. It's like a tumor. You know what a tumor is? It's a cancerous growth that can kill you because it interferes with other parts of your organs and bodies. It grows. We have a cancerous growth. It's called ahankar. And we feed it and it just gets bigger and bigger. So we nurture it. We nourish it by thinking, well, don't you see what I've done? I have a master's degree in economics. I've got another degree in finance. I can play mridanga. I did this, I did that. I'm accomplished. I make breakfast on Thursdays. It's simple, but it's done. I did that. So we think, therefore, that I am doing something. And I will purify my consciousness by my own strength. But that's not our process. That does not work. That's what people do when they try to control their senses. They don't even want bhakti, they want mystic yoga. They want to, be able to hear the thoughts of others, or touch things which are far away, or become very small or very large, or control the minds of others. Give like subtle, suggestions in the ether. You want to take a book, don't you? But that's not what we're doing here. We're practicing bhakti yoga. And it's a very subtle process. We have to have faith in the process. The process is that you simply hear. You don't have to try to do anything with your own strength. You just have to hear. And by engaging your mind fully in hearing, paying attention, that's what it means to dive deep into the hearing. To dive deep into your service means that all of your senses are engaged. Your mind is fully occupied. And then nothing can distract you. So that's what we should practice. That is a process of clearing the heart. And we do practice it. We try to practice it. And sometimes we do practice it. Every morning when we're chanting our japa, that's really what, this is how we start the day. This is our work. We are working. It's hard work. It's really serious business. Spiritual life is serious business. It's hard work. But we work with our mind and our intelligence. It's like that subtle work. It's most difficult. It's easy to make a chapati if you know the technique. But working with the mind and intelligence, first you have to identify where they are. They are known by their activities, their different functions. There are 4 subtle senses: mind, intelligence, ego, right, and consciousness. And they have functions. The consciousness, contaminated, is thinking, I am the doer, and I am the enjoyer. We see a nice house, we think, oh, I want to enjoy that house, I want to live in it and enjoy it as my possession. But how much can you really enjoy? Touching the walls? Look at my house. But then you will die one day. You'll be like this, oh, my house. That's the consciousness, right? I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, but I'm also the servant. Right? The servant. That's more important. Let me serve. Let me do some service. And there's the ego. Don't you know I'm a PhD, I'm a master's degree, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a doctor, I'm a, what do you call this person? Janitor, the one who cleans. Or I'm a pujari, or I'm a, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmin. But I'm also actually a servant. First and foremost. And last, I'm a servant. I am a servant of the servants of the Lord. So this is the proper way to engage our ego. Identification. Ego means identity. Maybe we get puffed up because we think we are something we're not. And then there's intelligence, right? We should understand this as a science. Understand, know thyself, right? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now's the time to make questions. We have to inquire. We have to wake up and inquire. Why are we here? Chanting and dancing in kirtan. Waking up every morning so early. My goodness, there must be a good reason for it. Visiting the temple on our off time. We could be watching a movie. Why are we here? We're here to practice spiritual life. This is serious business, and we should understand it. These are the ABCs. And once you make the ABCs, you can make a sentence. You can compose a paragraph. But first you have to know the basics. There's intelligence, and what is it doing? It's providing us the discretion how to use our mind. Accept and reject is what the mind is doing, but the intelligence tells you no, don't accept that. It will cause problems for you later. Instead of letting the intelligence sleep while the mind makes all the decisions, being dragged around by the senses. So the intelligence, you should use it, right? You should understand that if you want satisfaction and happiness, you should recognize when you're not happy. And when you read this literature, you know that material engagement is temporary and that you are eternal. So that happiness that we seek through temporary engagements will only bring frustration. You should have the intelligence to understand that. You may not employ the intelligence, but at least know that theoretically. And with that theoretical knowledge, then when you see your mind engaging, you can drag it back with your intelligence. Remind yourself, oh, wait a minute. This will not bring me long-term happiness. This is the work we do. This is the practice. We have to really identify our intelligence and use it. Bring the mind back. There's nothing else that will bring your mind back. This is real yoga. This is Bhakti yoga. It's not about jogging to get healthy. Real yoga, we use our intelligence. Okay, that's fine to jog. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't hurt anybody's feelings here. I used to be a cross-country runner. But what I want to make the point is that really, this work we do is on the subtle platform, even when you're jogging. All the time. We work a lot. In Prabhupada, I'm not inventing anything. Prabhupada says that. It's in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. He says we work mostly with our mind and intelligence. We work with our mind, we work with our intelligence. So learn what these are. It's your duty. And the mind is wandering. It's that thing that distracts your attention while you're chanting. That's your mind. So you have to bring it back in intelligence. You have to really absorb yourself in these sound vibrations. It's coming from this Golokera Premadana. I'm not inventing anything. Everything is already provided. I'm just repeating. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. This chanting of the holy names of the Lord. It's coming right from the spiritual platform. You don't have to imagine anything. Don't imagine anything. It's not an artificial imposition on the mind, Prabhupada says. It comes automatically from the spiritual platform. You just have to listen and engage your whole mind, your hearing, your tongue, vibrating. Listen. Watch, pay attention. Every syllable. That's how we do it in spiritual life. When you're washing the dishes, pay attention. Don't think about what you're going to do when you go home. Wash those dishes with your mind and intelligence. That's called Krishna consciousness. That is how you clean, purify, scrub. You have to really use it. It's an application. This is spiritual life. It's not theoretical. It's applied. We are applying the theory of spiritual life. We are applying it. Or we're not. Or we're doing it only 5%, 3%, 1%, 0.5%. We have to do it all the time. That's why it's a work. This is the hardest work. This is the work. Everything else, it's a hobby. Okay. All right. So it's now a little bit after 9:30. Prasadam is ready. Pretty soon. I guess I'll talk some more. Are there any questions? That's kind of what this is about. This Prabhupada, this is what he's talking about in the purport. It's in the 5th canto. It's being repeated because this is also in the Bhagavad Gita. That's how important it is. This is fundamental. This is beginning. A, B, C. Try to understand it. Try to apply it. If you apply it, you will understand it that much better. You have to apply it. Then you really understand it. Then you have realization. Practical application. Then realization. Just try it. It's so subtle. It's like this is hidden from view because you have to have a little bit of faith to accept it. You have to accept it with faith. That's why it's an open secret. We're distributing so many books, but you know, Jai, Shishibi Jai Gauranga Dhammi Tai Ki Jai. So this philosophy is available, and we're distributing this literature, we're talking about it, but it's an open secret. Because you have to have faith to hear the message. Like I feel sometimes every day I'm waking up into Krishna consciousness. Oh yeah, remember all the time. I forgot again. We have to apply this and remember. So some faith is required. You have to try it. It's hard to imagine because we're so used to building a house with bricks. I did something. But the most subtle sense of hearing is that sense which can liberate you. The greatest gift it will give you, better than a house, which you have to work so hard for, to build, to maintain. The most subtle of gifts, the most subtle engagement of simply hearing with your mind and intelligence. Do that, and then you will begin your spiritual life. But if you don't do that, it's very difficult. Very difficult. Very difficult. And read Srimad Bhagavatam. And read with your whole mind. What does this mean for me? How can I use these teachings? All right. So if there's nothing else? Yes, sir.
How can I make chanting the censure of the day?
You do it first thing in the morning, which means you go to bed early, which means you don't eat late. No, this is like military discipline. It's not a laughing matter, but I appreciate your good humor. But it is really a military discipline. You want the greatest thing. You have to work very hard for it. You know, my nephew, he's got this Marine thing. He's a Marine. He did what do you call this thing when you got to go boot camp? He worked very hard for it. But what does he really get? He gets a medal. He gets a little ornament. He gets like a pension, or some kind of money coming in. He has a nice thing on his resume. But he worked hard for that. But you want to get out of this material world? Don't think it's going to be easy. Don't eat late at night. Hello, Hare Krishna. ABC of sadhana. Don't eat late at night. Or accept the consequences. I'm eating late at night sometimes, but I accept the consequences. I'm not lying to myself. This is a regular good routine. I should do it every day. I should eat late at night good, pasta and pizza and cake and ice cream. Because I want to make advancement through my tongue. No, don't do that. This is you embark on this journey of Krishna consciousness. It's the most difficult engagement. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it because it offers the highest reward. So don't eat late. Go to bed early, wake up early, and chant your rounds. That's how you then make your japa the center of your day. Don't make prasadam the center of the day. Yes, sir. I'll get right back to you.
Two points. Actually, on Saturday there was pizza party, and I wanted to neglect but then association, so I told him eat something. So I was eating, and then I had very bad dreams. I couldn't wake up from couldn't wake up for Guru Puja.
Yes, sir.
So definitely agree on that point. And the other thing I was going to say was about doesn't matter.
It's okay. Thank you for agreeing with Bhagavatam. Thank you. We can get it later. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what if you do this every day and you still don't feel that?
But are you doing it every day?
No. I did. I used to do it.
For how long?
Half a year.
Okay, very good. Why did you stop?
Well, that's a good question.
And what happened? Like, did you notice a result?
Yeah.
And so what is your question?
I mean, still when I was doing it, I mean, sometimes I felt like it was the center of the day, but I didn't feel like it.
Because sometimes it doesn't, because you have to keep going. You go outside and you work on the street, sometimes it rains and it's a bad day. But does that mean you quit and give up? No, you have to keep going. Krishna's looking, he's creating the bad day, he's the weatherman. Let me tell you, God is controlling everything. And he wants to see how you respond to a bad day. Do you give up or do you keep going? So don't give up. Don't give up. Yes, sir.
That's the point. Use your intelligence, don't listen too much to the mind.
Thank you very much. Exactly. See, just like that. You know that if you have a little bit of faith, then this is the way to release yourself from this material engagement, this tabernacle of material, to be happy. Anandamaya Vyasat. You're seeking happiness. This is the way, by serving the source of all happiness. That even makes sense logically. This is the way. And when it's difficult, that's because we're purifying ourselves, we're practicing, we have to walk there. It's difficult, but your mind and your intelligence should know that this is the way. And if you have faith in that information, then you keep going. You know it will be difficult, that's why you made a vow during initiation. Because if it wasn't going to be difficult, you would not have to make a vow. All right. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai Ram Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
That was so steady.